Hi there, welcome to the latest of mine, probably more than 10-minute lives, and I'd like to welcome two guests tonight. We've got Preston journalist sitting in the middle, who is famous for his YouTube channel, does a lot of stuff like myself and Silver, etc., where they do a lot of current affairs news coverage, and Basil, as the Americans call him on Twitter, the famous X-Space host. So how are you tonight, gents?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, all right, until you introduce me as Basil. Thank you very much.
Preston, where's the suntan?
Oh, I know. Well, I spent a lot of time shade bathing. It was very hot.
You were in Malta. Nice place.
Very nice place. Very chilled out. Lived by the pool for 5 days out of 7, so I can't complain.
Was that the first time there?
Yeah, first time there, yeah. I went into the history. I've looked around some of the sites. Really good, really interesting. A lot of old British history there.
You and Basil can have a right good chat about history once we're finished, and I'll bugger off and leave you to it, right? Basil's a bit of history buff. So what about you, Basil? You been in the mousetrap, or how's life been for you today?
It's been all right. I've been observing the news, as always, and the slow destruction of the United Kingdom. Yeah, plenty to talk about.
So, what's the biggest story for you today then, Basil?
Well, so there was a story that you kind of go, we've heard this before, but it was just an outrageous story about a migrant who can't be deported because if he gets deported back to Tajikistan, they'll make him shave his beard.
Oh God, carry on.
And that is it's a human right to be able to have a beard. So the ECHR Article 9 means he can't be deported. This is absolutely true. And the reason he would lose his beard is because in Tajikistan they are very worried about Islamic radicalization, and for some reason, as part of that, they said, well, the radical Muslims all have beards, therefore you're not allowed a beard in Tajikistan. And he wants a beard, and the government in our country has said, obviously, well, it's your right if you want to be a radical Islamist. So welcome to the UK, you can stay.
So where is this place that you're not allowed beards?
Tajikistan. It's one of those places that are like old Soviet Russia that you can't remember. It's in Asia somewhere. Yeah.
So would that be all right with stubble, or would that be half all right?
I have no idea, mate, but try it and see if your human rights are violated.
I couldn't pick it out on a map, if I was perfectly honest with you, so I'll probably never be there, but I might remember that. As you can see, I've got a new shaver, which is kind of working for the old top of my head, so I dare say I could get rid of it quite easy.
Only a matter of time before they start sponsoring you, mate.
Good.
The shaver company, yeah.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
You got it, baby, she's got it.
Hi. So what about you, Preston? What's been the highlight of the political news today for you?
It's got to be the welfare cuts that Starmer's trying to put through Parliament for me. This rebellion is absolutely massive now. And the MPs are showing they're not frightened of Starmer in the slightest. Probably because he's never in the country for a start. Spends all his time at NATO anyway, or something like that. No one's even scared of him. Rayner had to fill in at PMQs again, trying to defend the indefensible. And she got absolutely slaughtered by Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor. And now the rebellion is well over 130 MPs, which, if the opposition vote with the rebels, then that's enough to stop the bill going through. Which, ironic, really, because I'm actually quite in favour of cutting back on benefits. However, Starmer is not going to get this through Parliament, and now Rayner was forced today to actually commit to that vote going ahead on Tuesday. So now they can't even U-turn on it. Preston, she was backed into such a corner. Yes, go on. Yeah.
A question about this, mate. So, do you think this is going to be the first loss for this government?
It depends how many MPs actually have the balls to vote against the government and how many actually abstain, doesn't it? But many are coming out.
The signing.
I'm sorry.
Haven't they got a list that they're signing? There's people signing their names to it.
Yeah, there's 132 now that have signed it.
132? Wow.
132, it's huge. I've never seen a rebellion like it. And many of them are coming out and saying that they'll lose the whip. They're not bothered. They'll lose the whip over this. And it's because, of course, so many of these MPs are sitting on such tiny majorities that they've got nothing to lose anyway. So they might as well go for it, or they're going to be out at the next general election regardless.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the numbers earlier. I saw a climber.
Basil's your mic. Can you turn it up your end a wee bit? I've got Hazel complaining, and I'm struggling to hear you a wee bit. So,
right, okay. How's that? Any better?
Oh, that's fantastic, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was just saying, I was looking at the numbers earlier, got to 80 when I saw them. So you're saying it's 132 now. Well,
132.
Looking at the numbers that Labour has, I'm just going to double check that and see if that would beat them. But I imagine even more will maybe vote against this on the day. I imagine actually he might even pull it if he thinks that he's going to lose this vote. Ultimately, though, the first loss for a government of this size, I didn't think it was possible. And it'll be an interesting day indeed.
Well, that's it. 156 working majority they've got at the minute. And then all it takes is for 78 to vote against them, of course, and the opposition parties as well. And what's even more humiliating, of course, is that Kemi Badenoch, I wasn't sure how she'd get around this, because surely the Tories are going to be in favour of cutting back people's benefits and putting them back to work. But what she's done quite cleverly is come out and given Starmer some options and says, if you do this, this and this, then we'll support you and we'll help you get it through Parliament. But they're just demands that Starmer can't possibly reach. So.
Can I just say, by the way, though, it actually would be clever for Kemi to work with them, because how bad does that look for Starmer if he says, I won't even work with my own MPs, I'd rather work with the Tories and Reform to get this through instead?
Oh, definitely. Oh, without a doubt, yeah. You're right. It's actually better for him to lose the vote and try and come back fighting than actually have to carry it through with the opposition parties. No question about it.
Absolutely.
So, my biggest story today, I done a thing about it, this carry on at McDonald's, where yesterday there was a guy in McDonald's in Essex, 4 guys in McDonald's in Essex, went in and started spraying staff with a liquid, which turned out to be a chemical. The staff thought it was water, but they started getting irritation in their eyes and their skin, and 6 of them ended up in hospital. So the story started coming out about 3, 4 o'clock today. 5 or 6 different outlets put it out. And it turns out that the incident happened yesterday at 5:30. And I thought, well, that's weird. First of all, the fact that, excuse me, nobody was talking about this for nearly 24 hours. And then I figured out, the police are quoted in it. So the police have obviously went to the media and asked the public for help to identify the people. But they've no bother putting in any, even a sort of grainy CCTV picture of these guys saying, does anybody know who these are? They've just told us they're looking for 4 guys. And then while I was doing a live broadcast about it, GB News started putting in that the police told them it was 4 white guys. They're like, all right. So it's just a bit bizarre, but you were saying just before we went live there, Preston, you've heard a wee bit more about this story.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say this is genuine or not. I was reading around, it was on the BBC website, and a couple of others saying it's weed killer that was sprayed at the staff. They're also saying, for the record, that nobody was seriously injured. But they're saying the suspicion is it was weed killer, apparently. And the police, as you said, are now appealing for help in finding these people. I was actually quite suspicious that they didn't announce any details of these people. Surely you'd think of McDonald's, whether it's in the store or in a drive-through, would have some CCTV, wouldn't it? You'd be able to spot these people, you would like to think, but apparently not. But I thought it was going to say there's some migrants somewhere or something because they hadn't given descriptions. But if GB News is saying it's 4 white guys, then I have to take their word for it, I suppose.
Well, when I was over in Cali, I saw a few people that were white-skinned, but they were coming here illegally. So it kind of can be done. And somebody's asked me a question about that, actually, I just went past it. Karen Best, Craig, your video and plans. Whereabouts are those migrants in France? They're just north of Calais, a town called Gravelines, spelled Gravelines. And Gravelines is not that far, it's actually closer to Dunkirk than Calais. And what country are they from? That's the weird thing. They looked as if they were in this central place where there was like hundreds of them. There was a lot of Africans, evidently African, and it looked as if there was maybe sort of Albanian, sort of Eastern European types as well. But when you came away from that place, there was like, you could see a definite difference where the African ones would be gone in one direction because obviously they've got sort of camp set up with just them, and the others was walking in another direction. And actually in the last day, just when I was setting off, there's a supermarket about 1.5 miles from this area that I found. And a lot of them got up there to get water and stuff, and I went up there in the last day. and there was a fight at the bus stop. I couldn't get my camera out quick enough. And it looked as if it was a sort of an Albanian-looking guy and some Africans. So obviously there's a bit of tension there. I don't know what that's got to do with maybe who gets on the boats or who pays for the boats or whatever. But aye, that's kind of where they all came from. And I'm going to get back out soon, to be honest with you.
I've heard this before. Sorry to interrupt you, Craig. I've heard this before. From Border Force people, when some of these migrants arrive on, the south coast, wherever, and they've actually already got stab wounds and bruises and cuts and bruises and stuff because they're fighting with each other before they even get to Britain. Yeah. So God knows what it's like when they actually get here.
Well, when I was down in Dover for the day before I went out to Cali, and I had a lot of time with the guys that count the boys coming off the boat, and they were telling me the day before I arrived, which would have been the Monday, there was a guy, 2, maybe 3, pulled out the ocean dinghies, or the channel dinghies, and put into the border force boats, and they had stab wounds. And they were kind of not sure if they get flung in the boat with stab wounds to get sent here to get free healthcare, because they've said that's happened before. But in this instance, they were sure that it happened in the boat. And it was something to do with, who should be getting in the boat and who shouldn't, or who should be paying and who shouldn't. So, I mean, it's crazy dangerous. That's not just for somebody like me wondering about themselves, but it's crazy dangerous for the people as well. And what I did see is, there was a bit in one of my videos, and I'm parked at a traffic light, there's a van in front of me, and there's a couple coming across the road. They walked in front of the van and then over there, and I thought, they looked as if they were maybe early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. And I thought, that poor girl is going to need to be staying in a camp with maybe 20, 30 guys in 6 or 7 tents. I thought, that can't be right either. That can't be a comfortable position. I think I've seen 3 women throughout the whole tour when I've seen these asylum seekers. To be fair, I saw one family, there was about 6 or 7 of them, and they were south of Cali. I can't remember the name of the little village, beautiful seaside village, at a bus stop. And then there was 6 coppers, like 100 yards away from them. So I burrowed down and I went up. I went to speak to the cops. I says, is this all right? Is there a problem? And they're like, no, they're just waiting for the bus to go to Dunkirk. So they were going to join them. There was a couple of women in that, to be fair. But when I was up near Dunkirk, 2, 3 women, all they folk, and I just thought, that girl's not going to be safe in that environment, So, aye, bit bonkers, mate. So what else we got stories-wise for the day? Stammer's at the UN, isn't he? Is that in the
NATO.
NATO. And we're going 5% on our income.
Well,
yeah, we're not.
Yeah, we're not. If you look at the latest round of rejigging the books, they've basically put things that we used to not include in defence, such as special securities, MI6, MI5, that kind of thing, GCHQ. They've all been lumped in now. The nuclear stuff will get lumped in. They'll just basically jig the books to make it look as big as possible. There'll be a small increase, but ultimately it won't make much difference. The truth of the matter is, it's not how much money we spend that's the problem, and it's the same for many European countries. It's what we spend it on, right? We're prepping for the Cold War, essentially, and we need to prep for a very, very different war. The Ukraine-Russia thing is what it's highlighted to people is what you need is not super technical weapons that cost millions and millions. It's lots and lots of just good enough weapons. Do you know what I mean? And because we've deindustrialized our country nearly entirely, we just don't have the industrial capacity to try and ramp that up, and we've gotten rid of our ability to make steel, for God's sake, in this country, which is just a horrific decision, So yeah, we have to have a big long look at kind of everything in terms of our industrial capacity before we can talk about upping our military really in any sizable way.
There's Mark Zedfeld leaving some comments. Good to see you there, Mark. I've not seen you for ages. I hope you're well, mate. But we'll still go through, though. But we'll still go through. He's pretty confident that we'll still go through. So nice to see you, Mark.
Just saying, going for what Basil said, then they're even including rural broadband in this defence expansion, so including broadband, including rural broadband into defence spending. It's not a 5% increase. And as for these munitions factories and creating all these new jobs, and we're going to get growth through defence spending, etc. At Starmer's, we've just announced today we're going to buy £1 billion worth of jets from the US. So we're not actually going to build anything ourselves, are we? We're just going to buy it off somebody else and import it.
Yeah, the truth is 12 F-45s or whatever the latest one is. Is that right?
F-35s,
yeah. And the truth is, those planes aren't really what we need for protecting Europe either, right? They're not designed for the kind of combat we would be involved in. What the Americans do is that's what they've decided to do, is project themselves around the globe for every situation, is keep the battles as far away from them as possible and take a hell of a lot of damage. What we need, like I say, is moderate, like above average equipment, but lots of it. And the thing is, we've lowered our numbers down across the board. And it's not just the army. I mean, you can look at the actual numbers of soldiers in the army and go, that's low. It's all logistics behind it as well. Modern warfare, just like warfare since World War II, the numbers of people behind the fighting who get things to the front, that's gone up and up and up and up and up. What we really should be doing, if we're being honest, is accepting the fact that if there was any major war that we were going to be involved in, we would be asked to provide the Navy, which is historically what we did. And we really should just focus on that. If we can get that right, we don't have to worry about anything else, because the fighting will be done by other people on the ground. We just need to get the Navy right, and we can't even do that right now. So
I think it's 60,000 of armed forces, or is that just the army? Foot soldiers?
I think that's 76, isn't it?
Because I heard a rumour now that we'll get more office staff and support staff than boots on the ground now.
Well, that's normal for an army in modern ages, right? More support staff than people on the front line, because it used to be. Look, put it this way: World War One, it was one person behind the line for every person at the front line. World War Two, it was 2 to 1, and now it's 10 to 1. So logistics
up.
Yeah. Logistics, information is so much more important than the actual person carrying the gun at the front. You got to remember, most like missiles and stuff are not launched by someone on the front line, right? They're launched from miles and miles and miles away and controlled by computers. And what you've seen with the Ukraine war is more people now are dying from drone combat than from any other form of combat, including artillery. So it just goes to show that, warfare is changing quickly. You need really, really cheap drones, lots of them, and lots of cheap bombs to be able to deliver that. And we've got lots of really high-tech equipment, but not a lot of it. And it's just not going to get the job done. It'll last a few weeks.
So I suppose if you had 70,000 of an armed forces, right, and you taught them all how to fly a drone, just go to war and give them 10 each.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one way to increase your numbers. Did you see the attack into Russia that went on, where they drove it was unmanned vehicles drove into Russia with unmanned drones in the back, and then they launched an attack on their planes and stuff. And that's the future of warfare, right? Because you can shoot down missiles or whatever, but trying to hit thousands of drones out the sky at the same time. And obviously they've got the countermeasures, and then, it's very difficult to do. Dominic Cummings actually spoke about it. I saw someone put a comment up saying, can you...
Yeah, I've left it up there. It says, if you get a chance, can you plug the Dominic Cummings interview with the Telegraph? It's an eye-opener.
Fantastic. By the way, if anybody's interested in our kind of like what Preston journalist talks about, what Craig talks about, you will love Dominic Cummings' interviews that he's been doing lately. He's been exposing everything behind the scenes. He's been talking about the incompetence of government, how government actually don't make the decisions anymore, how it's often the Treasury and the Home Office and stuff like that. So yeah, go and watch them. And the stuff about the grooming gangs, I mean, he's basically said, yeah, they covered it all up, and we know the people who did it, and you're going to find them out.
Could you maybe get us a link to that, Basil, or the I don't know how to say that, BNSK, who's commented on it? If you stick a link into it, and only once the video's finished is anybody allowed to click the link. All right, that's the deal. And while I'm on that, if you look down below, I've got Preston's YouTube name down there and Basil's X. And if you've not already subscribed to me, then you can leave the now, right? Just hit the subscribe button, that would be great. And hit a like as well, that would be fantastic. So, what else we got here? Keir Starmer fighting age male blow up dogs for sale, slightly won one Keir phone or 50 quid. Or nearest an offer. I'm in enough bother just now, Trevor, without me reading out stuff like that, so thanks. Kenny seems to be hate spout. So what else are they doing at the NATO conference? Is there any other news came for that?
Well, I was disappointed. I might be in the minority. I don't know. I was annoyed to see Zelensky there getting his snout to the trough. He's been demanding that European countries or NATO countries donate 0.25% of their GDP to Ukraine.
Nice.
And then Starmer decided to give him another 17 million, I think it was, in missiles to attack Russia with, which is absolutely mental. We haven't got any money ourselves. We haven't got, as you just pointed out, we haven't really got a conventional army as such, or a navy that can even fully man all of its ships. And we're giving money away to Ukraine, even more money to Ukraine.
Somebody's put a wee comment there. I hope he's not getting the train this time. Remember the train carry-on with the meeting I had with Zelensky and was it the German boy?
It was Emmanuel Macron, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Macron, the German, hiding the stuff. It was in Ukraine, wasn't it? Or at the border where they were getting the train.
Yeah.
Yeah, very dodgy.
So, put us in the spot. Is Macron's missus a man?
Right. I'll tell you a little story about that, right? I usually do not believe in... I mean, listen, I've sat and talked to Craig before, and he's like, what about this conspiracy? What about that conspiracy? And he's like, I can argue either way, blah, blah, blah. Me, I'm always like, conspiracies, usually I'm just like, that's not true. Can't be true, right? But somebody on X sent me like a big thread, and it went into shoulder lengths and everything, right? And proper analysed Macron's missus. And I'm pretty much convinced that's a geezer.
Yeah.
I am, yeah.
Hello, who's that girl? Is it Candy Sohn? American?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Did she stuff she done on the story?
Yeah, I've seen
They went to Stewie, didn't they?
They basically just bring it on, sue me. If I'm wrong, sue me. And she sat in this thing for months, and then I think she wrote to him and said, look, I've got all this stuff, would you like to comment? And the boys just ignored her, and she just went off bollocks. But it's just a cracking story. Whether it's true or it's not true, I think it's a cracking story.
Speaking of which, by the way, did you see Amani Khalif been told to hand his medals back today by the IBA?
I saw a tweet, I didn't go further into it, but I thought, oh, that's good. So who decides this?
Well, the Olympic Committee are the ones who gave. Is it him? Because I've heard conflicting, like it's them. I don't know, right? Anyway, I'm going to call him him, right? Amani Khalif, right? So because apparently I don't know. It's apparently he's not a fully a man either. I don't know.
No,
anyway,
I looked into this. If I can just say, I got this. I sort of got this wrong. I read a video on this actually defending this person, because if you read into it, he or she or whatever has actually got female parts. Right. But they're inside the body, but they've also got male parts as well. So it's not as a cut and dry as what people say. But when it comes down to testosterone levels and things, it is a man. Yeah.
So I've seen that he does have XY chromosomes, but he has got a conflict of interest going on in the downstairs department. Anyway, So Amani Khalif obviously competed in the women's category, and they were like, well, you're not actually a woman, right? You're like kind of a half and half or whatever. And anyway, the IBA, which is the International Boxing Association, who are not the Olympics, by the way, but they are a massive organisation within boxing, it said it's time you handed your medals back. Obviously, the Olympic Committee, I think they'll just kind of keep quiet about it until enough years pass, and then probably quietly do something about it. I don't know. But the fact that usually what happens when you win gold at the Olympics, you go straight into the pros, right? And then you start earning lots and lots of money. In women's boxing, thanks to a number of outlets, such as like Eddie Hearns and stuff like that, it's taken off. And there's like, Katie Taylor and stuff making millions now. And you'd think the up-and-coming Olympic champion, right, heavyweight, would be out there. But not heavyweight, but whatever the heaviest division is for the women, it will be out there, wouldn't he? And obviously, Aman is not, because he doesn't want to do the gender tests and stuff, which would prove that he's XY chromosomes. Yeah.
Was it not the boxing federation just before the Olympics wouldn't let him compete in the women's section in their event, in their competition? But for some bizarre reason, the Olympics had a different standard. Basically,
the Olympics, IOC have been absolutely dreadful on this. Other ones like what Seb Coe was in charge of, World Athletics and whatever, they've actually been quite good on it, quite fast, and saying, yeah, you can't compete if you're trans or whatever. But the International Olympic Committee have been terrible, allowing men to compete against women in all sorts of sports. And then, basically, in the case of boxing, you're allowing a man to beat the crap out of a woman, because that's what's going to happen inevitably. And then in other sports, you're just taking away any hope that a top female athlete has got of actually winning a gold medal, aren't you? But Trump's put a stop to that anyway.
The question I would ask is one, is compensation due? And two, would they rerun the event and say, well, we need to have, because you can't just give it to who came second place, because ultimately you might have beat people along the way who might have gotten to the final, right? So would you rerun it? Personally, I can't believe that there hasn't been a promoter who's went, well, we will rerun it just as our own tournament and get the kind of big support of, the turf crowd or whatever to support it, and J.K. Rowling and stuff like that, and just say, let's do it anyway and see if we can get some, something going here.
Yeah, because when this was a story and people were going, well, he's done a girl at a gold medal and somebody at a silver and somebody at a bronze and somebody, they should have got a medal being in the podium, wasn't even there. But it's even worse than that for me, because that's the ones at the top of the tree, and that's pretty bad, right? But there's somebody that didn't even get to go to the Olympics. Because each weight category, I would imagine, has got a set amount of people that can have in it, or the competition would be a wee bit lopsided. And it's that it really annoys me. It's the people that just didn't get it. They might only have one chance in their life to get to an Olympics, and they might be bloody rotten. But you know what? They might be the best boxer in their whole country, and they would have had the honour of going and represent their country. It's those people that I kind of go, that's pretty shit. Do you know what I mean? All people that have went to Commonwealth Games, and it's like the highlight of their life. So somebody in each, he wasn't the only one. There was another
one in another category of boxing, that one as well. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, there were.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I think that there's also a little bit of prejudice here in terms of the sport that did it in. I know it's horrific that it is boxing, right? Because you're literally fighting, beating each other up, right? So effectively, a man's beating up a woman, which is just despicable, right? But I think it's because it's boxing, no one really paid enough attention to it around the world, and they could get away with it. Whereas if it was a track and field event, like say the 100 meters or something, I think there would have been worldwide uproar about it, because that would have been one of the most watched events,
Thank you very much, Jan, who sent, I don't know what they're called, actually, super thanks for £5. So thanks very much. That'll go to the Payoff Macaulay Debt Fund, which is nearly finished. So thanks very much, Jan. And anybody that pays super thanks or memberships, because somebody else, Susan's brought out a membership, I normally put that money into a kitty for cameras and equipment, but I've got quite a lot of equipment now, so I'm going to just use that to give me a wee head start for my next adventure. And the next adventure is coming up very soon, but it's top secret. Once I'm away on holiday in early July, I plan to go back down to Dover Cali, and probably when they stop throwing bombs at each other for Iran and Israel, I'm going to go out there as well. So it's going to be mental. But aye. So thanks very much, Sean. That's really appreciated. Sorry, guys. As you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, I remember watching that boxing final. And was it an Italian that Khalifa beat in the end? That lady.
Was it Italian on the first round? Remember one of them just walked off?
She had to walk out the ring. She got getting hit that hard, obviously by a biological man, that she was in. You could see her, the amount of pain she was in. It was just cruel to watch. I was so, mad watching it. I just thought, this isn't sport. If they want to compete,
sort of a hybrid.
Yeah, this is it.
Hybrid. I shouldn't laugh. I'm trying to get elected to Holyrood. I didn't say anything there, right?
But it was honestly watching it. It's absolutely tragic. And you can think of all different sports where it's happened as well, can't you? Look at Leah Thomas in America. 500th in the men's or something like that. All of a sudden breaks all the world records in the women's. I mean, what the hell is going on? How do these people allow this to go on?
Do you know what? Do you know what it is though, Preston? Right, that also confuses me, and I've learned a lot about this watching this kind of issue unfold on Twitter and other platforms. If you look at the people who argue about this, right, effectively, like an awful lot of it is women arguing with other women, right? So they were like, I always assumed that this was like a bunch of, these guys who want to get access to women's spaces or whatever, for whatever reason. I'm sure some of them have mental health problems. I'm sure some of them are just perverts or whatever and taking advantage of the situation. And they're pushing for this stuff, right? And I'm saying that sincerely, by the way. I'm not saying it to have a laugh. There genuinely is problems there. But when you see how many people at the top of politics, women who are absolutely adamant that these men should be allowed to identify as women, that must be scary to other women who are sat there going, Jesus, like we've got an absolute fight in our hands here, because it's not a one-sided affair. And if you look at like Stella Creasy and stuff, who, I mean, I've seen Stella Creasy talk live before. She's a Labour MP. If you don't know her, she pushes the drag queen story hour stuff to the max, right? And she is not a wallflower. I've seen her on stage getting booed and heckled, and she stood up and basically told everybody to F off in the audience, right? She does not care. And she's absolutely adamant she's a feminist, and she thinks guys can be women too. And that to me goes, well, there needs to be a much wider discussion between these women about this to decide who's right, because obviously we can't get involved in it other than on Craig's platform, I guess.
Crack on. Listen, look at Kev. He's sponsored by Adidas too, Stripe as he's fake too. Kev, see before you come on. In fact, it was I think it was just before we even went live, wasn't it, Preston? We were sitting and looking through the comments, and there was comments going, Kev back on, Kev for First Minister. No, you're banned. You support Celtic.
Imagine if Kev was in charge. Imagine if Kev was in charge. Imagine if Kev was the Speaker. The presiding officer.
Brilliant. First Minister's question. Oh, Dafty, answer the question, right? And I'll park you out for 2 days. Yeah, I get it. If I get promoted, Kev's the first on my lunch list to come up and get a laugh and a wee tour of Holyrood. That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? Up the scooter, a big yellow scooter parked at the front door. I'm here to see Mr. Houston. And I'll be like, Kev who? Right? Brilliant, man. Anyway,
yeah, just going back to that Stella Creasy for a second, she is bad. I mean, I've never seen her. How you seen her, Basil? Like, I'm sure she's not scared of people, but she won't come out with the crap that she does. But don't forget, this is the woman that's just pushed and sponsored that bill to get through Parliament, so you can murder babies now before they've even been born.
Preston,
she was behind that as well.
Preston, no, it was worse than that, right? Her bill didn't get allowed to go ahead to vote. Tonya Antonazzi's bill went ahead, right? Stella wanted to go even further. She wanted to make abortion up until birth a human right, right? She wanted it so that doctors could promote this thing and everything. Like, it was just nuts. And again, these people, they're in Parliament. She's been there for years, decades even now. And you just sit there and go, who's voting for her? Who is voting for this madness?
I'm not reading Scott Morton's comments out because I've already got some heat on me, but that's quite funny, right?
Oh, Jesus.
Right, you're bad. There's Mac Media. Welcome to the channel, mate. Thanks very much for becoming a member. So what else has been in the news today? It's been quite a slow day then, because like if McDonald's getting somebody sprayed with some fertiliser, as we think it might be, is right up there. It kind of can't be that. So we've got that. We've got Khalifi boxing. We've got Starmer. We've got the bill going through. That's only sort of 4 things touched on, eh?
Well, I was going to ask your opinion on this. So you know that Keir Starmer, I don't know why they need a report to do this, right? But they've said that they've sanctioned off a report. So there's going to be a commission into working out why people got so upset during the Southport riots last year, and working out if it was in fact, the far right behind it all.
Mate, I touched this on the live earlier. What is the point of having a commission when you've told us the result anyway?
Mm-hmm.
See if you don't know what kicked off those riots, right? See if you completely forgot 3 young children get killed and another 10, I think, at attempted murder, right? See if you don't think that's what kicked off the riots, then what planet do you live on? It looks to me, because I've already told us it was a far-right, racist, Islamophobic mob, right? So that's going to be what the result of the thing is. Just stop taking the piss away and sort out the grooming gangs. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Absolute gangs. That really got to me the day when I read that. In fact, it was Martin Thingman that sent that. Martin Dobney sent a nice wee text today for GB News, and he's like, "Are you onto this one yet, Craig?" And I thought, he knows how to play me, because he knows I'll go straight down that road. I'll be one of the country going, what do you think of Starmer and this bloody thing? So it was just crazy. What did you think of that? Did you see it, Preston? What did you think about it?
Well, we've already had a report into this, haven't we? Not that we really needed one. We know what was going on. It wasn't the far right. But even this report that came out a couple of months ago said there was no far right involvement. It actually came out and said, and it said that Starmer himself caused or contributed towards these riots through his own silence and hiding information from the public. So had he told people the truth in the first place instead of trying to cover it up, people might not have got quite as annoyed as they did. And let's not forget, on top of that, he himself did the stupidest thing and went to Southport for 23 seconds or something, laid a reef, didn't even speak to anyone. He got back in his car and went to a drinks party down in number 10 straight afterwards.
Yeah.
You want to try and really annoy the public and get people to be agitated and start rioting. Just take a leaf out of Starmer's book. He's a master at it. This is an absolute disaster, whatever he does, isn't it? And there was no far right involvement. Don't give me that. Absolute rubbish. People were pissed because young girls were murdered, and people knew there was a cover up. Everybody knew it, and they just didn't want to tell us.
Right, Chief Kev's left for the evening, right? Don't anybody tell him about that thing. It's just flashed up on the screen, right? Thanks, Andy.
Is that what's happening now? People are getting you. Can you just pass that on to Kev, please?
Yeah. Do you know what I'm going to do with that? I'm going to spoil him, right? And I'm going to take, because the Edinburgh Tram return from the park and ride was about £4.50, right? And I paid for the ticket, right? So rather than put it in my pocket, I'll treat him to another tram ride into Edinburgh and get him to walk up the hill again. For those of you who have heard the story, he says I nearly killed him. I was walking up the hill to go to the Royal Mile from Princes Street. And I'm talking to Kev all the way up the hill, and then I was talking away for about 2 minutes before I realised, and I turned round, it was an old woman next to me who'd overtook Kev, who was 100 metres behind me, down at the bottom of the hill, on his knee. So thanks very much for that, Wendy. I'm going to take him back to Edinburgh with that £5 and get him another tram ride into Princes Street, right? Thanks very much. Sorry, guys. See, I always get distracted with these. That's why I love them. You just the conversation's just anywhere.
Sorry, on the report, though, you're absolutely right, Preston. They already have proven that Keir Starmer contributed towards that. But what the wider discussion needs to be around is, if you remember, when that first came out, all of the media was sat there going, this is just a Welsh choir boy, right? Basically saying that he's Welsh. And I think a lot of people want to have a conversation now about who is actually British, who is British in these islands. Do you know what I mean? Who is Welsh, English, Scottish, Northern Irish? Because if you are born of two migrants and you happen to be born here, does that make you British? Now, if you go and look into what happened with Axel Rudder-Cabana, he was raised in a household that basically raised him as from the African country he originated from, which I believe was it Rwanda?
Yeah, I think it was Rwanda, yeah.
And they raised him that way, and they also encouraged him to despise British white people. So I just think, well, if you're getting raised in a household like that by two people who ain't from here, what part of it, other than you happen to be born here, makes you British? I think there's going to be a wider discussion about that in the years to come, because we've seen things like a rise in, for instance, Palestine Action, and a load of other members of parliament even that support that. They'll just ask questions about Gaza all day and nothing to do with their own constituencies. And you think, who are you actually here for? Do you know what I mean? Because ultimately you haven't left behind the causes that you cared about back in your original family's home country. So does that make you British? It's a question that needs to be answered.
Yeah.
Look at that prat inside Parliament. Sorry, Craig. That's is it Tahir Ali, that Labour MP?
Yeah.
He speaks in Parliament never ever about Britain or Birmingham where he's an MP. It's always about, bear in mind, the bin strikes they've got in Birmingham and stuff, dirty it is. He either speaks about Britain building a new airport inside some town in Pakistan somewhere, or he's talking about other foreign issues like Gaza. I've never heard the guy mention the UK yet. This is the kind of people you've got in Parliament now. They couldn't give a toss about Britain. And like you just correctly said, Basil, they'd rather talk about the places they came from or where their ancestors came from. Like, if you're not bothered about it, go and live out there. Go and campaign in the actual country. Don't waste our time with it. We're not bothered.
I think Kevin's signed in with somebody else. Look, Kevin, I know I need to give him 15 quid now, don't I? I hope that is your Kev, or I'm going to be thanking the wrong guy.
Imagine if it's someone just pretending to be Kev.
Aye. Might be, actually.
I was just gonna say, by the way, Preston, I mean, spot on, mate, about the questions that need raising around that. But also, you've got to remember that there are people who've called this out in the past and they've been slagged off to no extent, including Suella Braverman, who's called out, who herself is a descendant of migrants. But she says, like, as she says herself, she's like, look, there are some migrants who clearly have got themselves assimilated into British culture, and there are some that absolutely do not want to and do nothing to try and do it. And if you look at the differences there, we can draw a line somewhere and say, well, these people are welcome and these people are. I truly believe that can be done. And so, I mean, someone just posted their Proverbs, 5 years in Wales makes you Welsh. And that's what Nigel Farage said. Nigel Farage said 5 to 10 years in Wales and you're Welsh, right? Now, again, this is supposed to be from the Nationalist Reform Party, the one that's got British patriotism at the top. So, it does go to show that there is a significant lack of courage amongst many politicians to call this out and say, actually, we should probably have a system similar to like the Japanese or whatever, where it's like you do have to have Japanese ancestry to be actually Japanese. And most people wouldn't disagree with that. So why is it different for being British?
No, just by the way, Alan's been jumping about the comments. That's Alan. You were on that show, weren't you, Kevin? Alan came on. Alan was a guy that really looked after me in Ballymena. Were you on that one? Because there was 3 of us. Hazel?
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Kev. Yeah, I was, mate.
Sorry,
I
mate.
was. Yeah.
Aye, that's Alan. So the plot thickens. So there's something going on across. I'm going to end up back there before I go on holiday. Or maybe
Sure.
holiday week Tuesday. So there's something going on over there.
You end up getting nicked if you can't read all these comments out. You're back behind bars.
I know. I threw one up earlier and realised what it was, and it's part now. So anyway, so there's a few questions in here, guys. So before we go to the questions, is there any other topics that we've not touched from today?
I've got one.
Sorry, go on, Preston.
All right. I'll try and get you nicked here, Craig. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. But careful how we say it. But we've all heard the rumours about Starmer and his wife and his family and all this stuff.
Hold on 1 second, mate. Hold on 1 second, because this is what...
Are you booting me out?
No. It was just this one came in and I'd thrown it to the side into the start comments to come back to, but our Starmer secret family about to be exposed by MSM. Is that where you were going?
This is where I'm going, yeah. So the rumours are that the MSM now, who, let's face it, know they've backed the wrong horse, they're quite happy to attack Starmer now. They've apparently stories are being prepared and they're going to be released in the very near future about the true shape of Starmer's family. And if you listen to people, I won't get you in trouble or anything, but you listen to people, you look at reports, you look at prominent people, like even people that used to work at the top of Guido Fawkes, etc. They've given interviews and said they've got details, they've got everything. The problem is they just can't 100% prove that this is a genuine story. But there is stories going to break about Starmer's family, the makeup of his family, and there's already conclusive proof about different family members, should we put it that way, that is going to break soon. And a personal scandal like this, combined with the political scandals and disastrous premiership that Starmer is having, could well bring him down. I said for a while now he would see 2026 as Prime Minister. I'm still very confident of that, but I didn't think it'd start unraveling this quickly. It's really coming. I think we're seeing the beginning of the end here.
Do you genuinely think, right? Somebody said the day after the election when the results were verified, I can't remember who it was. We spoke about this before, Basil. I think it was somebody on GB News said, he's got an odd family shape, and that was the kind of first anybody had heard about this.
Yeah.
But is that the sort of thing that would get him to lose his premiership, to stop being the Prime Minister?
Normally, I was... Sorry, Bob, you go. I've already been, you go.
I think... Thanks. I think right now... Well, remember, the only people who can bring Starmer down is the Labour Party. They've just got too many MPs, right? I think there are a number of people who would love to see him go, but don't have any way of doing it. And what they need to do is they need to convince people who are out and out on his side of... Because obviously he angles as, if I leave, the hard left might take over. So you're worried about that. But if they can convince enough people that he is a duplicitous man and that he's done bad things, and obviously that means that when he turns around to them and says, look, I'll sort this out. We've got 4 years left. I'll get my poll numbers back up. when they turn around and make him so unpopular in the public eye that he can't do that, that will push him out the door. And just on what Preston was saying, I've heard similar rumours. I've asked a few people who I know at the Labour Party about things like this. And I'll be honest with you, it's been smoke and mirrors. But from what I can piece together, it's allegedly... Am I allowed to say this? Let's talk about somebody else, just a made-up fantasy guy. I heard allegations of a love child, and he's apparently a bit of a player on
Homer
the side.
Simpson's got a child, it's not Margie's.
Sorry?
I said, has Homer Simpson got a child, it's not Margie's?
Aye, something like that. I mean, I heard allegations of an affair with a previous PA. And
Homer Simpson,
Homer Simpson, Homer Simpson as a personal assistant, and the child wasn't Bart or Lisa or Maggie. So I've heard a few things like that. Look, do we know if it's true? No, we don't. And I've same as Preston. I'm not seeing anybody confirm anything yet, but keep tuning into Preston's show, I guess, because I'm sure as soon as he finds out, he'll let everyone know.
I'll tell you what I can tell you, and this is because a prominent journalist has already said it live on camera. There's a birth certificate, and I can tell you that much, definitely, that the media's got. This is the worst kept secret inside Westminster. All the press pack know it. Everyone knows it, but nobody wants to be the first to run it. And in response to your question, Craig, would it normally bring a Prime Minister down? No, it wouldn't, because it's a personal issue. The press would tend to stay away from personal issues. But when you're somebody who's tried to paint yourself as this, this whiter than white guy who's never put a foot wrong in his entire life, then you're in serious trouble, I think. Because, people like Boris and that, everyone knew what Boris was. He's a womanizer. He's got God knows how many children and all that. People didn't care about his private life because they knew he'd been up to all sorts. But Starmer's tried to paint himself as this wonderful man, this virtuous man who's never put a foot wrong. And we know from different things, from Lord Ali and other rumours, etc., it's simply not the case. He's a disingenuous liar, and his private life is murky, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Buchanan, I don't know who that lad is, right, but he's obviously getting for a ban. What is this tonight? The Poundland loose woman, right?
Aye, who's sleeping with who? I tell you what's funny though, right, Kev, right, although it is a funny comment, right, remember what brought Nicola Sturgeon down was the tranny issue, right? It's always like weird things like this that can tipple politicians over the edge, and they ignore the kind of crazy, like, let's let in millions of migrants and stuff, and it's like weird stuff like this that can bring people down. So yeah, but funny comment, to be fair.
There's Mark came up with a good point. George Galloway is now back in independence in Scotland and putting candidate who will back a second referendum. Well, that's good, because it was the only thing I've ever not disagreed with George Galloway on. He was actually very vocal campaigning during the 2014 referendum to remain in the Union. And I get asked a few pals that were going to a talk at Paisley Town Hall. And I went, no, I couldn't think of anything worse than sit and listen to him, right? But he went up, and that was his whole thing. He was driving to vote no. But he's switched in the last 24, 48 hours, and now he wants another referendum. He's not actually said he supports independence. I don't think what I've seen him say, or heard him say, was he thinks it's only fair with a second referendum, which is kind of reform-esque, because that's kind of what they said they had on their website last year at this time, or just before now, that they wanted to have a second referendum in 2039, the exact same thing that their second in command in Scotland said at the time in a video. So it sounds a bit like that, but we don't want an independent Scotland. Well, why would you have a referendum? It's not, if you're a unionist, it's not your job to push for a referendum. It's quite the opposite. That's separatist job. So it's pretty bonkers.
Why do you think he's done it, Craig?
Craig, are you wee Jimmy Johnson's illegitimate son from a Don supporter? Aye. I'll hunt you, Bumpy. I'll find you. Right. What I will say on that, Bumpy, I'm a mad Rangers fan. And I was in at Celtic's training ground a bank holiday Monday when I was about 13 years of age, and Jimmy Johnson must have been about 50 odd at the time. And he was training with the reserves or the under-21s or something at the time. And at the end of the game, I was going to play a game on the pitch after their training, and we were waiting to get into the changing room. And I stood in awe of this old man at the time, and I'm 52 now, so he was probably a wee bit older than me at the time. And playing football. And I thought, wow, I now know half my family are Celtic fans, and they used to rave about Jimmy Johnson. And I seen him play once, and it was 3 feet away from me, playing against folk less than half his age. By God, I can understand why people, the Celtic fans, really hold a special place in his heart, because he was good in his 50s, can believe me. But that'll do. See Aberdeen fans, I kind of think some of them hate me more than Celtic fans, right? But that's a long story. Now I've got Preston and Basel like that. Talk about Scottish football.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
don't
when you finish.
I was going to ask
wake
you,
you up. Preston, politics.
I was just going to say, Craig, why do you think George Galloway has all of a sudden changed his tune on independence?
I kind of think he's pandering to his audience, and his audience are some of the worst regimes in the whole of the Middle East. Mm-hmm. He seems to be pal with every one of them.
Yeah.
Even Saddam Hussein, it was pretty wrong what they done to him. He started saying, I mean, Iran are not that bad, and why shouldn't they have nuclear weapons? Like, serious, George? Serious? Because he's kind of like, he's like a team version of Corbyn, who, you know, will love every single terrorist organisation around the globe, regardless of how safe or unsafe they are. And George Galloway's kind of the same. So I kind of think he fits the separatist camp a wee bit better than the unionist camp anyway. And I don't think, do you know, remember there was a story, used to maybe never paid much attention because it was a Scottish thing. There was a thing that the Majority Show, Mark Dermot was doing a couple of months ago, and I said to Mark, you need to come on and do a podcast about it, explain it to somebody like me who's not as intelligent as Mark. And I said it was about the Iranian bots that were pushing independence on X. Yeah. And apparently, since Iran got bombed to hell by Israel and then America, apparently all these bots have stopped posting stuff.
Right.
Interesting, isn't it? And now, is George Galloway the Iranian bot now? Is that kind of what's happened? Because as soon as that happened, George then was like, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to let Scotland self-determine its own rights.
You've got to remember, George Galloway is like comically evil as well. I mean, did you ever see the video where he's handing cash over to the leader of Hamas out of a JD sports bag? Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I've seen that. I think the guy's just trying to stay relevant. That's what he's trying to do, isn't it?
Well, there's definitely a pandering there, because you've got to remember, I mean, the SNP have been very pro-Gaza and pro-Palestine, haven't they? So it behooves them to suck up to the voters who are on that side of the divide and say, you know, and let's be honest, you know, historically, British Unionists tend to be on the side of Israel. So I guess that's where he's seen that line to be drawn. I don't know if he's standing candidates for Holyrood next year, but it was only a few months ago he said that he was done with Scottish politics and he was focusing on English politics because he became the MP for Rochdale. So...
Oh, he's crackers. He's absolutely bonkers. I just can't. Some people are mentioning here about him being on Big Brother and the Cat and all that, and I kind of can't get that out of my head. Do you know what I mean?
Oh no!
It's just like, well, where do you go for there? How can you take it seriously?
But by the way, did you see David Lammy today?
By the way, something Michael's saying here, I'm not a fan of George Galloway, but he does say Rent Boy fabulously. Also, remember one time we were talking about that, it was Ukrainians. Remember? That couldn't move. I watched the video about 4 times. Ukrainians. No, mate, they're Ukrainians. I knew he's getting me in it. Ukrainian. He was saying the Ukrainians when he was talking about it. So apparently me and George Galloway were the first on YouTube to start going, yeah, this is a bit sticky, isn't it? These rent men and stuff. So
they've disappeared, haven't they, all of a sudden?
You what, sorry?
They've disappeared all of a sudden, haven't they?
Well, now they've been charged and there's a court case. It's kind of that means they have to stop talking about them, which was a bit bizarre because they weren't talking about them until they got charged and taken to court.
Court date for next year, by the way. They've put that back as far as possible, haven't they?
Yeah, too right there.
You know, I've said this a million times. It's either an attack on the democracy of the United Kingdom, which is the only time Keir Starmer mentioned it was on the floor of Westminster, and that's what he said. And you think, well, no, it's not clear. Because if that was the case, you would have expedited the case through, like you did with those other people in the summer that you claimed were a threat to democracy in our country, right? But no, they're up at court about probably been the next leap year. Right, I'm going to go to the questions quickly because the messages just come in thick and fast, and I've moved all the ones with questions to the side, so I'll try and battle through these. There's about 16 of them. Please let us know when people in Glasgow are going out to protest so we can go. You're doing brilliant. Keep safe. Thank you very much. There's people asking me all the time, will I come and talk at this event and that event and whatever. And there are a few people want to do things in Glasgow towards the end of the summer. And the biggest problem is the most natural place in Glasgow to do it's George Square, and it's closed for regeneration, and it's going to be closed for a while. Butchie Burger said made a completely innocent comment, just an observation that Taylor Swift is very tall. I think that was around about the time you were talking about Macron, you bad boys. Check your emails. You've been sent a link to watch a video in regards to the van, minibuses and trailers that seen in the ferry. Thanks very much. Blue Bayou. Well, wait a minute. Are you the same Blue Bayou? I wonder if it is. I hope so. Back in my older days when I was doing the Rangers stuff, there was a Blue Bayou that helped me a lot with that. If that is you, I hope you and the missus are well, mate. Did anyone see Rupert Lowe get the petition on sentences for special media announced? So social media announced?
Yeah.
For 11th of July. That was 100,000 reached, wasn't it?
Within 24 hours, yeah. Yeah, unbelievable. So he's up basically, for those who aren't aware, Lucy Connolly, Wayne O'Rourke, there was a number of people around the Southport time were arrested and convicted and locked up very, very quickly for things that they posted online. Rupert wants to have a debate in Parliament about this and just kind of force the government to defend what they did, particularly around Lucy. So he started a petition, it got 100,000 signatures, and that means the debate will happen. So it'll be good to watch.
This question for Martin, I did see this. This was something if I had a bit more time in my hands today, I was going to do a video about. I might do it tomorrow, actually. Other civil servants in Scotland requesting a heated swimming pool and a pay rise to return to work in the office. I would send them a P45. That's a mental story that they're all working from home and there's been requests for them to start coming back into the office. And they're saying all sorts of mental stuff like, well, that's no good because I'll be limited in the amount of time I can walk during my lunch break. And seemingly one of the buildings has got an old swimming pool that's been out of use for a while. They're saying, well, if you fix the swimming pool, it means we can exercise in the lunch break and all this nonsense. And you're like, just get to your work, right? Just get to your work. I reckon 1 in 10 people can actually work as efficiently at home as they do when they're in work. So that means there's a lot of people don't. So can we just stop, please? If 5 individuals want to start businesses and want to say to their staff, just work from home if you want, that's down to them. But these are people that we pay for. Our wages, pay for them. And somebody's received a membership for the channel from Michael. He's gifted it. I think what happens is you can go and you're already a member and click on to give somebody a membership, and then you just select somebody at random for the chat. So well done, Michael. Thanks for that. Somebody's got a free membership. What do you think the percentage of migrants that have crossed in at least the last year belonged to IRCG, and how would anyone know? What is IRCG?
IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Ah, right. Aye, hundreds, if not thousands. You can bet your bottom dollar. But they'll be all right now because there's been regime change, so suddenly they'll be nice people.
Keir Starmer said he's worried. He actually turned around and said that to Trump. If you attack Iran, I'm worried about Iranian cells launching terrorist attacks in the UK. Then why are there Iranian cells in the UK, Keir? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking, Tommy, this happened today, Craig, the housing in Hull, I believe, being designated for immigrants alone. Listen, that's been happening all over the gaff. There's a place not far from me that before COVID, I remember because I was drinking in a pub before COVID and I kind of lost my way with COVID and get used to not going to the pub. And the pub, my local pub was great because it was all old guys and it was their life and it was their social life and it got them out of the house and they weren't sitting there drunk, they were sitting 2 or 3 drinks over the course of the whole day. And there was a development getting built and a few of them were getting all excited of going and putting their name down for these beautiful flats that were getting built. And when they eventually opened up the list, they were told, no, they're not for people that are already in Scotland. And that was pre-COVID. So it's no surprise to me if they're all doing that today. Is it true that a PM then, what was the Ukrainian pretty boys about? If this is true. Your guess is as good as mine, Victoria, but I'll get into trouble for putting videos out about that.
Well, that story went away far too quickly, didn't it? If any other world leader gets indirectly attacked, let's say, like that, that is a major story. All of a sudden, because it's 3 guys that had allegedly had Grindr accounts and stuff, it disappears. It's absolutely crazy.
I'll comment on that. Right, I don't think Keir Starmer is gay or into Rent Boys or whatever, right? I think those boys were used by someone who knows them. Obviously, they, like I say, Ukrainian, so they're on the run essentially because they're meant to be conscripted for war right now, right? And I think what's happened is Keir Starmer, they've listen. What person in their right mind is firebombing the houses of the Prime Minister and his car and stuff like that? You know what I mean? They've been put up to that without realizing what they're doing, or they're too scared and they've been forced into doing something like that. They must know. If they knew they were going to get caught for that, would they have done it? You know what I mean? I personally think this is a vendetta from someone further up the chain who's just used them as to get his own back, sort of thing.
Listen, Bumpy. Is it Bumpy, by the way? You've got a better memory than me. That said the thing he was an Aberdeen fan. Because he's now saying, is it not true that Craig's gone to the Vatican to meet the Pope? Listen, I went to the Garden Gag at Royston the other night there. Right, that was enough for me. I need to get my street cred back with my unionist Protestant friends now, because they were like, "Oh, you did back Royston with the protests and stuff." So I've maybe skipped going to the Vatican for a wee couple of years or two, Bumpy. All right, people, man. Right, again, I just want to round off with you guys before we go. I think we've done an hour, and I think that was fantastic having you both for a bit of company tonight, and it lets me, while you are blathering, get a wee bit through the messages and stuff. So is there anything else you just want to finish on?
I'll tell you what, I got round the Vatican, personal story, I got round the Vatican in record time. I found it that interesting. I think I managed to get round it in about 45 minutes.
Seriously?
Yep.
What, were you in the Pope Mobile?
I was that, honest to God, right. I mean, I'm not Catholic anyway, but regardless, I was that bored, I got round it in no time.
Is it not that big?
No, oh, it's huge. Yeah. I just wasn't really bothered about the stuff that I was seeing. So I got round it as fast as I could and went for some gelato instead.
Good for you, mate. A Vatican gelato?
Yeah, Vatican gelato, yeah.
Made with holy ice. Right, Basil, what about yourself? You want to say anything before we bugger off?
No, I was just going to say thanks very much for another great live, mate, and keep up the good work. And same to you, Preston. Obviously, I've started watching some of your videos as well. Very good.
Basil, your channel has got 1,060 people currently listening to this. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
It's mental. It's got more. There's more people watching us on X than watching GB News right now on X. Which is
crazy. As well,
between the two of us, yeah, we've beaten them. Yeah, it's very scary.
If I was on GB News, it might not have been as high.
You were good on GB News the other day, by the way. I said you're looking very comfortable there now. You're getting used to your role as the go-to Scottish commentator.
See, to be fair, it's down to experience, and I don't mean I'm not trying to sound like the guy I am, but 10 years ago when we was doing the Rangers stuff, I was kind of doing interviews at 2 and 3 a week. I remember bumping into Alan McCoy one time, who was the Rangers manager at the time, and there was a wee kid there, and he went, "Listen, son, going back to your Uncle Craig, I need to go in here to go training." And I was like, "Alan, how do you know my name?" And he said, as a manager of Rangers at the time, "You're on the TV more than me, Craig. Everybody knows your name, right?" So it's quite funny. I thought it was funny. You didn't need to laugh. But kind of done my apprenticeship. I've had some really terrible interviews. I was on one that's still on the internet that really makes me cringe sometimes. It was a live one on the BBC. It was a bit of a set-up, but I managed to put them right on a few points and actually get blackballed for the BBC thereafter. I was never allowed back on. And the BBC told me that. So that might be a struggle when he's trying to be a politician if I'm still blackballed off the BBC. But I've done a lot of stuff previously, but that was 10 years ago. So it's amazing how it's like riding a bike. You kind of jump back in the saddle and it's all right. You just think, as I'm doing it now, you just think, well, I'm just talking to that camera and, I'm only talking to Preston and Basil. And that's how you kind of through it. But thanks, I appreciate your kind words there, Basil.
Well,
and
we've got to enjoy this time while we can, because soon you'll be in Holyrood and you'll be too big for us to talk to. So you'll be live from your office, you know what I mean, and all that. Yeah. So
well, I was talking to somebody else about this today, funnily enough, and they were saying about people sometimes too big for their boots, and I kind of said, well, look, when it was my first shot at the rodeo back in 2012 to 15, when I was doing that stuff for Rangers, I kind of got that as well, and thankfully I had some pals around about me. That went big and come here, but don't forget your old ass, will you? I thought, what? You're becoming a bit of a tit. I thought, am I? And I kind of looked back and it was like some of the way I was talking to people that disagreed with me and stuff, where I was quite offhand and a bit aloof. So I kind of got enough people, I think, surrounding me that if that was to happen again, they would soon pull me back down to earth. So fingers crossed I don't become a bit of an arsehole. And if I do, it'll be not through design, and I'm sure people around about me will let me know. But I might not talk to you two ever again, so.
I just want to say as well, cheers, Basil. I follow you on Twitter. I enjoy watching and listening to you. And Craig, we speak every day anyway, so I'm sure I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah. Do you think I'll still be in that group chat, Preston, if I get elected?
Oh, I don't know. I might have to boot you out. We don't want you getting our inside stories.
Yeah, because we've got you, me, Silver Fox, Nick, Buckley, and Andy, the Gabby Cabby. So there's 5 years now in our group chat. It's good fun, isn't it? So that's just kind of. I was telling somebody this the other day, and I don't think they kind of understood what I was saying or quite believed me. But see on Twitter that the X Spaces, I think it was Mark who's in I don't know if you're still listening. I'm sure it was him that told me that when he started doing X Spaces, it was like dead competitive, and folk were saying, "Oh, you can't do one at 7 on a Thursday because that's my time slot and all this sort of stuff." Right? And you're like, what? Whereas the 5 of us, with all due respect, we all kind of say the same stories, right? We might have them a slightly different angle. So you would imagine that we should all be competitive and we should all be like, oh, don't tell him anything. You know, I want to have the scoop. It's not like that at all, is it? Have you ever found anybody on YouTube, Preston, that's a bit weird?
No, not really. I mean, to be honest, until I got in that WhatsApp group with you guys, I don't really speak to that many. I speak to a few others, like Alistair McConaughey and a few others, but yeah. I don't chat to them all the time. But then, no, we us guys, it's quite the opposite, isn't it? We actually feed each other stories and then they end up going out anyway. So it's just, they all go around the same time, don't they? I don't think we're competitive at all. We just have a laugh, don't we? There's plenty of audience to go around as well.
I hope is old bugger still in Cyprus, by the way?
Is what, sorry?
Is old bugger Silver still in Cyprus? He must be, because he done a video with the sun hat on the other day, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He's still in Cyprus, yeah.
Right. See him. See the drunker he gets, the funnier he gets. He phoned me one morning, right? I'd put some video, right? And I go, what is he phoning me for? Hello? He's like, you all right? I think, in fact, the video called me. And he was completely blurred, right? And he's like, video you put out earlier on, Craig, I've been meaning to phone you. That was brilliant. I can't even remember what it was, right? Steaming drunk. So, about tea time the next night, I sent him a message, I phoned him or something. I was like, Foxy, what? I went, you were blurred last night, weren't you? He went, how did you know? He phoned me at 1 o'clock this morning to tell me how wonderful my phone was or some crazy thing. He was just wanting to let me know. So it's all good fun, mate, isn't it? So it's all good fun. No, good banner. Right, guys, well, look, thanks very much for your time. Really good fun with you tonight. And as I said to the guy, what I've done, Basil, see the boys that are in the WhatsApp group, said to them, look, anytime I'm doing a live, I'll fling the link in. And if you want to come on, you've got to spare even half an hour, 45 minutes, just jump in. So hopefully we get a wee band of people used to, maybe get Silver and Nick and Kevin and again, and, you know, just get a sort of a wee gang together. One thing, Basil, you was into the night that we put out the link to come on stage.
Yeah.
With a couple of people. Do you think that would work?
Well, you're always taking a risk, aren't you? You know what I mean? It's up to you, really, because you could get someone in who's like, listen, I've got some great fun points to tell you about my local area. You could also get on some absolute nut job who wants to defecate on camera. Do you know what I mean? You just don't know.
Don't do them on a Friday at like 10:30 at night or something. Because I kind of liked that. Right? We had a couple of people come in that night, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to do that again this week before.
Aye. It'll be great until one time it goes wrong, and then you're like, right, I'm not doing that again. I remember Craig, because Preston, I don't know if I'll follow you on Twitter. If I don't, mate, send us your thing and I'll make sure I follow you, right? But I got told off Craig, right, because I do spaces, right, and spaces you interview people and, you know, you talk to celebrities or, you know, you were co-hosted with me, didn't you, when we spoke to Graham Linehan, right? So you've had different people on stuff. And I used to let people up to speak, right? And you I mean, some were great, but some were just maniacs, right? Just maniacs. And you felt so bad. And Craig actually turned around and told me, he said, I used to do these events with like Rangers footballers and stuff. And what I learned was get them to send their questions in, and then you filter through the kind of nonsense and you read out the good ones, right? So I changed to doing that. And now Craig's saying, I'm going to go back to just having the free for all, let everybody up, you know. So
I should listen and take my own advice sometimes.
Yeah, maybe you should.
Right, well, thanks very much, guys. Thanks very much for everybody. And it's great because I'm just looking through the comments here and there's names there that you just go, oh, they're you know, Transit Fran, she's barred, by the way. She's just owned up to singing for the Pope at Bellevista Academy, at Bellevista. That was Pope John Paul II. Must have been about 81, 82. And he came to Glasgow. And we were raging because all the Catholic schools got a day off, right, to go and see him. And Transit Fran, she was singing at it, so I bet that was a good day for you, Transit. Well done, buddy. And Transit Fran's offered to take some people from Paisley up to the event. We had the boy on from Fraserburgh last night telling us about his event on the 10th. It's either the 9th or the 10th, whatever the Saturday is of August, the 9th, because I'm at court on the 8th, which is a Friday. And all going well, I told him I'll come up. But obviously, if I don't turn up, kind of things have went a bit pear-shaped for me. So, yeah, well done to those last night, try to organise and get together and give the guy a bit of support up in Fraserburgh on the 9th of August. So, thanks very much to my two guests. It's been absolutely brilliant, far more intellectual than me as a host. That was great. Thanks very much to everybody who's tuned in. And if you enjoyed it, click the like, hit the share, and add some comments once it stops being live. YouTube will package it up in about 10 minutes and throw the video back out, and all the comments disappear. So if you want to support the video, do that. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe. Down there you'll see Preston's channel. Subscribe to him, and if you're on Twitter, go and follow Basil. But most important of all, as long as you're not the type of person that wants to kid us on and investing in the defence budget, as long as you're the person, not the type of person who wants to kid on your get perfect happy families, then know you. But everybody else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.